How do you guys manage the differences between here's the big pot of money today to add 10 rooms, and then in 5-7 years when your refresh cycle comes along, that big pot of money is no longer there to help you refresh?
It is really just different from place to place, and it's because we live a little bit at the mercy of the values of the institution. So you have some places that look at these things in that way. That is, if we have a big thing now, what is the sustainability of it versus you would never look a gift horse in the mouth. We're gonna move the way we need to.
Oh no, somebody's gonna give you money to upgrade your rooms. You're gonna do it.
I'm gonna take it, right? We're gonna do it.
You know the answer to that, Owen. Pay a man enough, and he'll walk barefoot into hell.
Where VR belongs in AV, mid-market projects, and more acquisitions and partnerships. All that and more. Next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 733, recorded Friday, September 5th, 2025. Refresh chunks. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the biggest news and stories in the AV and IT world. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. This week, we've got more mergers and acquisitions, partnerships, and pricing changes. Let's get into it. We start with Ross Video. The Canadian live production company has acquired Llama, a company specializing in audio monitoring and mixing. Llama's software-based tools are designed for live sports and entertainment, helping broadcasters monitor loudness, latency, and audio quality in real time. By bringing Llama into its portfolio, Ross Video continues to build out a more comprehensive end-to-end production ecosystem. This move also highlights a larger industry trend of removing the walls between video and audio workflows, pushing for more seamless software-defined production environments. In collaboration news, Jabra and Lenovo have unveiled the Panacast 50 Room System 2. The bundle combines Jabra's panoramic 4K camera and intelligent audio with Lenovo's ThinkSmart Core Gen 2 compute device. New updates include native USB-C connectivity, better cable management, and a choice between USB or IP controllers designed for Microsoft Teams rooms and Zoom rooms. The system targets hybrid meeting spaces that need both simplicity and intelligence. Speaking of Microsoft, Microsoft has announced changes to its AI strategy for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, previously, specialized Copilot tools for sales, service, and finance required additional licenses. Now those features are included in the base Microsoft 365 Copilot subscription. Price is set at $30 per user per month. Let me say that part again. The price is $30 per user per month. Now that is down from a combined total of almost $50. Microsoft also introduced Agent 365 and new Copilot credits models for extensibility. This price shift signals Microsoft's intent to make Copilot less of a premium add-on and more of a mainstream productivity tool for businesses. Finally, Imagine Communications is using IBC 2025 to debut the next generation of its monitoring platform for video networks. Now, really quickly, AVNation will be attending and covering IBC 2025 from Amsterdam the 12th through the 15th of September. The system is designed to give broadcasters and service providers deeper insights into IP video workflows, ensuring reliability and more content moves as more content moves to the cloud and software-defined infrastructure. Imagine says the new tools allow operators to quickly identify and resolve issues in live environments. That is, of course, a critical need as audiences demand uninterrupted streaming and real-time coverage. This development reflects the broader momentum around network transparency and automated quality control in the broadcast chain. That's your AV news. Stick around for this week's Roundtable, where we will discuss mid-market projects and the use of VR in AV. This is AV Week.
Hey listeners, it's your AV sneakerhead, Jennifer Weaver. Listen to AV Career Masterminds, where I chat all things job-related in the audio-visual industry. You can find AV Career Masterminds where you subscribe to podcasts.
Welcome back. Now we bring in our fantastic roundtable with us to discuss the news and articles we have gathered this week. First and foremost, Jennifer Weaver. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, everybody. How are we?
Fantastic. And two gentlemen I've gotten to know over the last couple of years through HETMA, through Ryan's own podcast, and a whole bunch of other stuff. First, Ryan Gray. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. How are you today, young man?
I am well, sir. Thank you. And Mr. Chris Kelly. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with this wonderful bunch of folks.
Yeah, it is an auspicious group. I would hesitate saying motley crew, but I'm old enough to have seen that band.
Same here.
First story comes to us from Rave Pubs, the mid-market segment, including retail, hospitality, houses of worship, and other small, medium venues, is sustaining a whole lot of parts of the Pro AV environment and integrators, even as some large enterprise projects are slowing down or stopping altogether in the middle of economic uncertainty. Now, the article calls these mid-market jobs, they are not the ginormous $5 million systems. They are also not $1,000 systems. That's why they're in the mid-market. These are particularly attractive because they can be quoted, deployed relatively quickly. A lot of these, especially in corporate and higher education classrooms that are kind of step and repeat, those are really, really easy to be deployed. Now, when you start getting into different setups and systems, those start having one-offs and changes, and those aren't as quickly as deployed, but a lot of the components are the same. When we look at these, and Ryan, I'm going to start with you on this. When you look at this and you look at that, what they're referring to as the mid-market, are there practices, are there technologies in that space, whether it's simplified control interfaces or a standard? When you look at this, how can higher education folks improve your own project planning, improve your own execution when it comes to these kind of step and repeat systems?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of higher education is exactly mid-market, right? Where we are a lot of the same classrooms repeated over and over and over that are done in refresh chunks, right? And that kind of relationship, so many schools have great relationships with integrators and resellers that kind of thrive in what this calls the mid-market because, they may get, occasional giant buildings because, that need, $5 million systems, but their capital budgets may be built far more upon more incremental, replacement cycles for classrooms. So the flip side to something maybe not coming in as a huge project is that mid-level project is going to come year over year over year and become a little bit more of a sustaining revenue flow for that, for that office. And then it leads into the things that you mentioned there, which is then you get kind of consistency built. You get trust built between that, between that school and that supplier. And you can recreate the same thing over and over and then iterate those systems that builds a lot of efficiency. So I'd have, people think about, mid-tier things in that front and look, as if you're at a school, really consider, what does your funding look like, whether you're an OpEx or CapEx kind of prioritized place, and develop those relationships with people that, may not be a huge spend in any given year, but it may come year over year over year as you're keeping things, you're keeping your places refreshed and up there. As a group for us that we do a lot of our own work in-house, that is really how we're built, right? Our staffing model is built around primarily for us that ERP, equipment replacement program, that we're lucky enough that we have a commitment to keeping our spaces like new. And so it is the time when we get large capital projects that then we're ballooning into getting help from the outside. And it creates those opportunities, if that makes sense. But I think a lot of the things that we would preach normally around project management and things here is the, standardization, use as much consistency as you can, develop the relationships with the companies that you use the most so that they can augment your support capabilities. And they mentioned in there, like you said, simplified programming in places and times where there are configuration options rather than all custom programming options that accomplish a lot of the same things. Use those. Not to, drop a specific one, but, Crestron's .AV framework that they've been, working a long time, just because we do a lot of Crestron stuff. I have a lot of training and I happen to know that there is a whole lot of functionality that you can do by just doing configuration out of the box with that framework and stretch your dollar, that much farther. So I would just encourage people, especially in this time where there is uncertainty, lean back on those practices that are repeatable, consistent, and if what we trade off is a little bit more simplicity, that's okay. If maybe it seems a little boring for a little while, but we keep things moving and we keep refreshed technology, in our classrooms.
When I read this, I laughed because this is what, when I got into the AV industry 19 years ago, I was mentored and trained on, was a quote unquote standard for your customers. Easy deployment, the ability to be done over and over and over and over again. So I love the new terminology that was thrown into this. But from an integrator and being a previous integrator, that's what I think we've been doing all along. Those mid-market, those were always the bread and butter, consistently run rate jobs. You loved those because you could easily deploy them. I don't think it's anything new. I think it's just, let's just throw some, new sauce on something that we've already been doing.
Chris, same kind of question as to Ryan. What sort of standards, right? What sort of practices can you guys glean from this to make your project manager and make your execution, whether that's summer, upgrades and installs or the PMing and small upgrades we do over the winter? How can you leverage those standards to make, honestly, your guys' job and your campus better?
So when I read this, I think a lot about spaces that maybe the AV tech is not the focus of what the spaces may be used for as much. So thinking like dorm areas where we have maybe lounge space that people are going, we've got maybe some white noise going, we've maybe got some calming music going, we've got some displays, but it's not necessarily the focus of the space. I think maybe huddle spaces, collaborative spaces where we want something nice and simple to toss in that can be consistent across campus, simple to use, simple to toss in, not a lot of points of failure with it, but people can go in, they can use it to do some fairly simple things, but they're not doing a lot of complex tasks there. It is in addition to the experience, not necessarily the focus of the experience. Looking at digital signage, tossing in more digital signage at different places across campus. It's a box, it's some content, it's something adding to the space. It might be a more digital menu instead of a static piece of paper that someone has up, or it might be what some options are into place, or some wayfinding. Different things that help enhance the experience, but they're not some big, huge auditorium-style classroom that might have some varying minutia of gear.
Brian, really quickly, before we move on to the next story, you mentioned something there where, occasionally higher education, you'll get let's call it a big pot of money, where you go, okay, great, we can do 10 new rooms, we can do 20 new rooms, and we can do this brand new, science lecture hall. I am reminded of something that happened during COVID and some unintended consequences since then. And that is where a lot of education institutions got grants from the government and other organizations to upgrade, to put in new spaces, to make as many of the classrooms remote learning as possible. Whether it's the COVID money or not, or it's a big grant, or it's a wonderful benefactor who says, "I really love your school and here's $10 million." How do you guys manage the differences between here's the big pot of money today to add 10 rooms, and then in 5-7 years when your refresh cycle comes along, that big pot of money is no longer there to help you refresh. So how do you manage that?
Well, I appreciate you asking me a question that there's not an answer to. So,
Okay.
really, that's no. I mean, the answer is ironically is if you can go campus to campus, and this is a huge conversation, right? This is one of the biggest things in higher ed, and it is really just different from place to place, and it's because we live a little bit at the mercy of the values of the institution. So you have some places that look at these things in that way. That is, if we have a big thing now, what is the sustainability of it versus you would never look a gift horse in the mouth. We're gonna move the way we need to.
Oh no, if somebody's gonna give you money to upgrade your rooms, you're gonna do it.
I'm gonna take it, right? We're gonna do it. And so I think here's the way the people that I've seen to have a little more success in it, try to tie it to other things that happen on campus that are viewed in a similar way, even if the time scale is longer, right? So, and in facilities management, there is a whole lot of similar concerns with upkeep of buildings and replacement of things. It's just that they're usually talking about 20 or 25 year lifespans for a heat pack, not 5 to 7 years. But it has been trying to basically, can we roll AV technology, the networking technology, the other things in there into those types of standards through facilities management or some other process that's already understood and valued at an institution, rather than just try to make the case on its own. And then the other part is in schools that are really federated, right, where those projects are happening with control from individual colleges rather than central control and that sort of thing. There is a very much that question of trying to keep that on the people's forefront, which is it's exciting to talk about day one, but let's talk about, day 1000 in this space and in that, and what can we do now to help that? And I think ironically, some of the answers are the same, which is, we could do something outlandish in some of these spaces, but if we've got a campus standard that's replicated other places, that might be helpful in keeping, in having cross connections and having, the ability to take, to upgrade from different areas, shift budgets in the future and keep things, keep things up and going. So I don't know, if there was a great answer to that, I think we'd all have it solved, but that's usually the answer to me is always, if you've got something is important and you can't convince anybody of it, is find something else similar enough that is seen as important and worm your way to hitch it to that same decision making or value, that kind of value chain that already exists.
That's a really good idea. Chris, same kind of question, unless your answer is the same as Ryan's, which is nobody knows.
Obviously, no one knows. We're running into this right now where we've got this big fancy video wall. Someone tossed out a bunch of money, and one of the screens is now going bad. They don't make the screens anymore. It's not covered by warranty. Big event's coming up that needs that space soon. What do we do? There's not that pot of money that bought this specific video wall there again to try and replace it, and definitely not with the time frame that we've got. We can move some screens around to try and get the not so great looking one in a less visible part of the spectrum, but we're not going to find the money and get something new installed in the time that we've got. The standardization is super important, because if this had more standardized displays like we have for other video walls and other parts of campus, we might have that backup. We might have more in stock on hand that we can toss in another display that would work there. If we could just standardize on the things, we have less things that we could keep more of on hand to try and replace and repair in situations like this, while trying to plan for the future whenever the heck something is going to happen that's going to make us have to replace the whole thing. The more buildings we get, there's only so many things that can fall into a 5 or 7 year cycle before you have buildings falling on top of buildings falling on top of buildings, that you just need to add more and more without the budgets increasing that significant amount. So something's eventually got to give. So doing what you can to standardize so that you've got that breathing room to keep things together a little bit longer.
All right. Last story here from AV Magazine. Vioso has launched Exaplan, Now, Exoplan is a visualization tool that allows users to project CAD floor layouts at a true 1-to-1 scale in any sized room. Now, Mitchell's going to put a link to the story. The video on this, the visuals on this is rather remarkable. This is not really looking at anything other than the ability to walk through a room. It reminds me, though, of a bunch of other immersive software. One is called Modus VR. Full disclosure, CTI, the company that owns AVNation, we are a customer of Modus VR. They're not a sponsor, but I have used them. It's an interesting application. I am not giving it props or taking away. Just understand that if you want to know more, you can hit me up and I can connect you to the right people. But Jennifer, I want to start with you on this from a manufacturer's standpoint. Stuff like virtual reality and augmented reality. It is, for a minute there, it was a buzzword inside the industry, and I'm always hesitant to cover buzzwords, whether it is the metaverse or it's XR or it's VR or whatever.
Or whatever acronym.
Yeah, whatever R. But this is becoming more and more mainstream. Where does VR, where does XR, where does this augmented reality, this alternate universe, I guess, or alternate reality belong in the world of AV?
I think it's huge because what's going to end up happening is AV hopefully will not become the afterthought. Because now we're going to be able to stand in that space and go, here's where your cameras are going to go. Here's where your audience is going to sit. Oh, we need a network drop here. We need power here. Now it's going to give everybody the ability to say, look how important this AV stuff is that we thought it wasn't important, because the AV stuff is being used to show this cool thing of how I can stand in my space. So I think it's very important, right? Because now instead of also going, oh, I don't want a display on this wall after it's already been installed and the building potentially has been turned over, and now we say, Mr. CEO doesn't want it, or Mrs. CEO doesn't want it in an area, it needs to be moved. How much is it going to cost to now run cabling, move electric, move the display? So if we can stand, because look, I can read somewhat a CAD drawing, but not everybody knows what they're looking at. And you're looking at it like this, not on a big scale. So I think it's going to be phenomenal, and I think it's going to be a game changer for AV to make us not an afterthought, that we are on the forefront of it.
Chris, same kind of question from a higher ed standpoint. You could take this either from kind of the first story we talked about, the step and repeat classrooms that you either refresh every year or you put in new every year, or even those one-off, special spaces, whether that's a conference room, it is a lecture hall, it is a event space. Where does VR and XR belong in the AV industry and helping specifiers like yourself kind of, make sure that you know what you're getting and the integrator that you're using understands that understands what it is you're trying to do?
My concern is that so much is so standardized, even though maybe the specs for rooms, the size of our rooms vary slightly. I mean, our rooms are the exact same shape. That this maybe in a VIP space could be used as random one-offs, but for the standard classroom, kind of, like you said, toss it in, standardized mostly across the building, I just don't know that for the cost, it's something that we would use with any kind of regularity. VR, XR, it's great. We use it in some limited stuff primarily in our medical schools. I mean, you have spaces to try and do things in VR. But as far as putting up the CAD drawing to try and visualize the space in a more 3D perspective, I just don't know that I see us using it with any kind of regularity.
Mr. Gray, same kind of question is where does it belong in the workflow of getting spaces done on your campus?
The visuals in this kind of reminded me of two things. It was a few years ago when my wife and I were working on, we were going to build in the garage of the house into a bedroom, add a bathroom on the side. And a generality for AV people, I think maybe we might lean a little more visual spatial than other people, just like there's a selection process. And so I think some of us, we're better at seeing something in real life that isn't there from what we see on paper. And we've just been trained to do that, whether it's in live event where you've got a drawing of a backdrop and that sort of thing. Like, we're used to it, but our customers aren't, our end users aren't. And so when we were doing this renovation with my wife, I was trying to see, like, well, this is 3 feet wide and this is that. And eventually I was like, well, no, let's just, and we went and got the paint tape and, on that garage floor and just painted it out in real size. And then it was a different experience because that worked there. And the other one is, when I first got to YC, there was a renovation project already underway, and a room was going to go in here that sat about 150 people, and it was going to be similar to another room that we had. And basically, the thing from the top down was, we just need the same stuff in this room that we had in that room. The problem is, the first room is about 15 feet tall and has one single giant projection screen in the front, and the place they were building it was on the first floor of a 2-story building, and the ceiling was 9.5 feet tall. Right? Not going to work. Doesn't compute. Doesn't. And so literally in the long run, on that one, I ended up, it was back in the days when Google SketchUp was still Google SketchUp, and ended up having to just go in and make a SketchUp of that room and put the people in it and be like, okay, if we did it, we would do this. And here you are sitting in the third row, right? If we just put one, now here's a distributed video way to look at it. And then people understood. And there was part of it where you're just like, come on, people, how is this not obvious to you? Well, all the stuff they do for a living isn't always obvious to me. And so I love this sort of thing where this one where, you can just throw the plan down on the ground and let people walk through it. We're in the latter quarter of a 1.5 year long renovation of a big building right now. So we're in that stage now where most of it is there. So the people who are going to work in the building can now walk through it and see it in real life. And they're in that place of going, oh, I didn't think it was going to look exactly like that. And you're going to go, well, you were in on all the plans. You saw all of the same blueprints I saw. It's just that I'm more used to looking at blueprints and translating those into real life. So solving the problems, to Jen's point, solving those problems before the thing exists so that it is built with that. I think there's a lot of value in it in terms of those. Now, yeah, with Chris, like, for the same classroom over and over, not a big deal, but we still run into things there. And I know everybody's probably got the frustration of, they designed this really awesome building, but there's a glass wall that makes it where you can't see X, Y, and Z, or there's a pendant light hanging down in where the projection's supposed to be. So if these CADs...
Or an HVAC duct where the projector's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. So if these things include all of our technology in it, those things will become really obvious to people in the long run. Like, okay, you're in the space now, go sit in that back row. Let's take you to the back row, and this would be the experience in terms of size of image or those sorts of things. I think it would be cool. And then the one picture in here has the projection room. So they're using that, and we're excited to have a room like this coming online for some instructional things that we're doing. But it's just another example, and we've already we're working actually with the architect and the contractor that are building that building for them to then use that space of ours in the future for future clients. They will basically rent it from us so that they can walk future clients through their things and have that happen at our college. So
very cool.
It just seems like the ability to give people a better feel for what the end is in a way that multiple people can stand in it at the same time, instead of feeling like you're alone in a headset and the disorientation that can come with that. Just stand in the room and collaborate as you normally would. And it just seems like an opportunity to solve a lot of the challenges with big construction projects early on so that they don't become problems down the line.
And I just hope the cost is at a price point that people can do it, because the other thing, and as you just said, construction, a lot of time construction makes their money on change orders.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully this price point can be at a level that the majority of customers out there can use it. But I'm sure then there's going to be a fight, because now it's going to eliminate certain funding sources and ways for other trades. But
well, and not to get into the entire discussion about construction and change orders. There's a reason change orders are expensive, is because the GC, the EC, whoever, they put a bid in and they planned on this, right? change orders are really expensive just down the line, so that's why. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Mr. Ryan Gray, thank you. How do people connect with you?
Yeah, I would say everybody, please look me up on LinkedIn and send me a message, get a conversation started. And every once in a while, I'll post a picture of a sunset or something I think is cool. So keep an eye out for those.
And how do they connect with your 15 different podcasts that you have going on now?
I would say if you are not doing it right now, bookmark hiredav.com and just check it out every day. We're picking up the rate of content that's going up there, and not all of it is me, and even some of the things that are me will not be me forever. But it's been really fun to work on getting more and more voices, more and more perspectives up there and out there. And while we're here, because he probably wouldn't mention it, but Mr. Kelly wrote a really, really great feature on neurodiversity in higher education, AVIT, that not only really explains things in an interesting way, but has some actionable things in there. So it'll be up on our homepage all month. So hiredav.com, bookmark it, check it every day for something cool.
All right, very good. Mr. Kelly, how do people connect with you?
Well, thank you, Ryan, for that call out of that. I'm trying to also get more stuff up on hiredav.com and helping Mr. Gray on the back end as much as possible with that. I can be found on LinkedIn. Definitely try and find me on the HETMA site, though. I'm the advisory board chair with HETMA, so I help coordinate our weekly meetings for the folks in higher ed to get with wonderful people like Miss Jen Weaver to come in and talk with us and learn about what they're doing, get their hour with us to talk what's coming up next. But yeah, LinkedIn and HETMA would be the main ways to get a hold of me, and please reach out. And if you're not a member of HETMA and you're in the higher ed AV space, become one.
All right. Ms. Weaver, how do people connect with you?
Big thing is LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn. I work for Laya Technology, so you can find us there. And I am also the vice president at Next Level Learning, where we are an organization that focuses on educating and empowering youth on the AV industry. And I am also the host of AVNation's AV Career Masterminds podcast. Yep. So if you are looking for a job, want to know anything about finding a job, I want to talk to you.
All right. Speaking of which, that is one of the two new podcasts that we have posted this week. Is Jennifer's conversation with our friend over at Jake Voss on Career Mastermind. We also have a brand new. It's not a brand new podcast for us, and I'll explain this in a second. We have an AVNation special where we're helping launch our buddy Byron Terry's The Next Question. Byron is spearheading this AI in AV initiative called Next, and you can check out more. That is the AVNation special this week. And to follow the rest of the episodes that our buddy Mitchell is producing along with Byron, you can check that out over at the Next Questions RSS feed. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me anywhere, because at this point in time, by the time you listen to it, the Bears will either be on their way to beating the Minnesota Vikings or losing to the Minnesota Vikings. It is a 50-50 chance. Don't tell me otherwise. But go by the website, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. You'll find Jennifer's podcast and this as a whole lot others. If you want to read things that I write that have nothing to do with the AV industry, you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you would like. Tim Albright. I'm sure there's like 2 or 3 of us. I don't know how to tell you which one I am. Just look for me and the big dummy that has AVNation attached to him. So, but if you're listening to this and you want to see what our fine panel looks like, you can go check us out on YouTube. And if you are watching us on YouTube and you're done looking at me, you can just go check us out and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. But all that and more, go by the website first, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hello, this is Steve Greenblatt, host of AVNation's A State of Control podcast. Each month, Rich Fregosa and I explore trending topics related to control programming and automation in the audiovisual industry. We speak with a variety of AV professionals who share their perspectives, knowledge, and experiences. Please join us for this monthly conversation. Check out A State of Control on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.